I thought I was living the dream, a good job, a loyal wife, a quiet house in the suburbs. Turns out, I was living in someone else's lie. For most of my life, I believed that if you worked hard, stayed faithful, and built something honest, the world would reward you with peace. I was 38, a software engineer with a stable career, a mortgage I could handle, and a woman I thought I could trust. My name's Mark Carter. And back then, I didn't know that love could rot quietly behind the walls you thought were safe. Laura was 34, radiant in that girl next door kind of way. Soft voice, kind laugh, the kind of smile that made people think we had everything figured out. We'd been married 5 years. No kids. Just us and our German shepherd, Max. He was the loyal one, the constant, the kind of companion that never lied, never played games. He could sense moods better than most people. I used to joke that if I ever disappeared, Max would be the one to find me. Our life was simple. Breakfast together in the kitchen, while the morning news murmured in the background. I'd leave for work, she'd kiss me at the door, smelling faintly of coffee and vanilla lotion. Evenings were quiet, home-cooked dinners. Light conversation. The glow of the TV washing over us as Max slept at our feet. We didn't fight much. At least, not about anything that mattered. Bills. Schedules. A few sharp words here and there, nothing unusual. From the outside, we looked like a portrait of contentment. Sometimes, I'd watch her through the kitchen window while mowing the lawn hair tied up, humming while she watered the plants, and I'd think, yeah, this is it. This is what I worked for. I'd look around at the white fence, the neat driveway, the soft hum of suburban life, and I'd feel grateful, like I'd made it. I didn't know then that peace can be the quiet before a storm. That comfort can blind you, because when you trust someone completely, you stop noticing the little things, the pauses, the deflections, the smiles that don't reach their eyes. You think love means not questioning, and that's how the cracks start forming, invisible at first, hidden beneath routine. Back then, if you told me my marriage was built on lies, I would have laughed. Laura was affectionate, attentive, everything a man could ask for. She'd rest her head on my shoulder during movies, send me texts in the middle of the day just to say she missed me. I thought I'd won the lottery, but sometimes the most convincing performances are the ones played with sincerity, and while I sat there every night, believing I'd found my forever, the truth was already moving quietly beneath the surface, waiting for the right moment to rise and destroy everything I thought I knew about love, loyalty, and the woman sleeping beside me. It started small. It always does. A late reply here, a soft laugh at a text she didn't explain, the way she started turning her phone face down on the table during dinner. I didn't think much of it at first. We all need privacy. Right space. Breathing room. That's what a good husband tells himself. But habits change quietly. And when you live with someone long enough, you notice the rhythm of their life when it skips a beat. Laura began using new phrases, the kind that don't sound dangerous until they multiply. Girls' night. Book club. Just the gym. Words meant to sound harmless, designed to end a conversation before it begins. Idnod. Pretending not to notice the way she lingered over her reflection before leaving. The extra perfume. The new outfits that didn't look like gym clothes at all. Max noticed first. Dogs always do. When she came home late, he wouldn't run to greet her like he used to. He'd stand there in the hallway, ears back, tail still, nose twitching. I'd pat his head and tell him to relax. But the truth was, I smelled it too, the faint trace of a man's cologne that didn't belong to me. That night, while Laura showered, I sat in the quiet living room with Max at my feet, staring at nothing. The TV flickered light across the walls. But my mind was somewhere else. I thought about how trust works, how it's invisible until it breaks. You can't see it cracking. You can only feel the air change. I'm a software engineer. My world runs on logic, patterns, code. And like any system, when something breaks, there's always a trace, a glitch, stump, an error log that doesn't fit. I just hadn't looked close enough. She laughed more at her phone than at my jokes. Stayed longer in the shower. Claimed she was working on herself. Though I wasn't sure which part needed fixing, I told myself not to be paranoid. Marriage has its phases. Distance doesn't always mean deceit. But late at night, when I'd roll over and feel the cold space beside me, that logic didn't help much. Her excuses became smoother, practiced. When I'd ask where she'd been, she'd touch my face, smile that perfect smile, and say, "Don't you trust me?" And I'd nod. Because saying no felt like losing before the fight even began. The truth is, I didn't want to know. I wanted the illusion more than the answer. But Max wouldn't play along. He'd sit by the front door after she left, restless, whining softly like he knew something was wrong with the pack. Dogs don't lie. They don't fake affection or rehearse words. They just know. One evening, Laura came home late again, claiming traffic. Max growled low under his breath, the first time I'd ever heard that sound from him. I watched her hug him half-heartedly, then brush past me to go upstairs. And in that moment, I realized something simple, something primal. The loyalty in that dog's eyes felt more real than the love in hers. After she went to bed, I sat alone in the kitchen, staring at the glowing screen of my laptop, pretending to work. The hum of the refrigerator was the only sound. I scrolled through code. But I wasn't debugging software anymore. I was debugging my life, line by line, memory by memory. Every late-night text, every unexplained smile, every girl's night that ended too late to make sense. And like any corrupted system, I started seeing the errors stack up, too many to ignore. Some men explode when they suspect betrayal. They yell, accuse, demand the truth. Not me. I went quiet. The kind of quiet that means calculation, because when the woman you love starts lying, you learn something important. Truth doesn't hide forever. It leaves breadcrumbs. And I was done pretending not to see them. It happened on an ordinary Saturday. The kind that feels too calm to suspect anything. Laura had left for another shopping day with her friend Claire, the same excuse she'd been using for weeks. I told her to have fun, kissed her cheek, and watched her drive away, like everything was normal. The house felt quiet in that familiar way. I cracked open a beer, turned on the Arsenal game, and settled into the couch. Max lay by my feet, half asleep, tail twitching with the soft rhythm of the afternoon. For a moment, life felt steady again, predictable, peaceful. Then Max disappeared into the hallway. When he came back, he had something clutched in his mouth. At first, I laughed. Probably another sock he'd stolen from the laundry. But when he dropped it on the rug and looked up at me, tail wagging proudly, the laugh caught in my throat. It wasn't a sock. It was a pair of black boxer briefs. Not mine. Not my size. Not my brand. I froze. The TV kept playing, but the sound faded until all I could hear was the blood in my ears. I picked them up slowly, turning the fabric in my hands, searching for an explanation that didn't exist. I wear medium. These were large, The label was a brand I'd never bought. And they were fresh, not old. Not forgotten. My brain tried to run through every possibility. Laundry mistake, a guest, something from months ago. But logic didn't bend that far. I looked at Max. His eyes were calm. Waiting. Loyal as if he'd done his job. And in that silence, I understood exactly what he was telling me. He hadn't just found an object. He'd found the truth. I sat there, staring at those boxer briefs on the coffee table, realizing that the life I thought was solid had just cracked down the middle. The dog knew. He always knew, while I'd been rationalizing, ignoring instincts, explaining away her lies. Max had been watching. He didn't understand betrayal, but he understood wrongness. And now, sitting there in the glow of a muted TV, I finally saw it too. The truth wasn't whispered. It was delivered by a loyal creature who couldn't speak, but somehow said everything. I didn't move for hours. The boxer brief stayed on the coffee table like a bomb I was too afraid to touch again. The beer went warm. The game ended. The light outside shifted from gold to gray. But I just sat there, staring, thinking about every moment I'd trusted her. Every time I'd said, "I love you," and believed I was speaking to someone real. By the time her car pulled into the driveway, my body was still. But my mind had gone somewhere else, somewhere colder. She walked in humming, shopping bags in hand. Sunglasses, still on. "Hey. You," she said lightly. "How was the game?" Her voice was bright. But hier eyes never made mean. I could feel my pulse in my throat. Steady and heavy, like the tick of a clock counting down. "Interesting," I said. "Max found something today." She froze for a split second. Not long enough for most people to notice, but long enough for me. I'd studied people the way I studied code. One wrong expression, one misplaced line, and you know the system's broken. Her gaze followed my hand to the coffee table, to the black boxer briefs laid out like evidence. There it was, that flicker. A micro-expression, sharp as lightning. Fear. Recognition. Then gone. Replaced instantly with a soft, practiced smile. "Oh." She laughed. "Those must be from when Jake stayed over a few weeks ago. You know how guys are with laundry. Jake. My friend. Convenient scapegoat." I nodded slowly, pretending to consider it. "Maybe," I said. "He was pretty messy." She relaxed just enough to think the lie had landed. She even reached for the underwear. Casually. Like she was cleaning up clutter. "You really shouldn't leave things like that out," she said with a teasing smile, but her hand trembled barely. She picked them up, stuffed them into one of the shopping bags, and carried them upstairs. I watched her go. Each step she took sounded like a nail in a coffin. I should have confronted her. That's what most men would have done. Shouted. Demanded. Exploded. But he didn't. Because rage is loud. And loud men make mistakes. So I went silent. That night, I lay in bed beside her, staring at the ceiling. She slept soundly. Or at least she pretended to. I could hear the faint rhythm of her breathing. Steady and slow. The same rhythm she'd had when everything was normal. But now every breath sounded like deceit. I turned my head toward Max, sleeping near the door. Even in the dark, his eyes opened when I looked at him, alert. Loyal. Aware. He didn't need to know the details. He already understood the truth. My mind kept replaying her reaction, that split-second flash of panic before the lie. That's the thing about deception. It never starts big. It starts with a single twitch. A half-second too long of silence. A fake smile. And once you've seen it, you can't unsee it. I didn't feel anger anymore. I felt precision, a calmness that comes when emotion burns out and only purpose remains. She thought she'd hidden the evidence, but she'd just given me confirmation. The story she told didn't match the data, and I've spent my whole career catching bad code. While she slept, I stared into the dark and made a quiet promise to myself. No more guessing. No more Daniel. The next time she lied to me, I'd have proof. Real. Undeniable proof. And when that day came, there would be no shouting. No tears. No drama. Just silence and the truth. Laid bare. Because sometimes, silence isn't weakness. It's strategy. And I'd already started planning the endgame. The next morning, the house felt different. Not louder. Not colder, just artificial. Like I'd stepped onto a movie set where everyone knew their lines but me. Laura moved through her morning routine like clockwork coffee brewing. Makeup brush. Hair dryer. Perfume. All the motions of normal life. But normal had died the day before. While she hummed upstairs, I stood in the kitchen, staring at my coffee cup, and realized something simple. If she could play a role, so could I. That afternoon, I drove to the hardware store. The young clerk barely looked up when I asked for wireless security cameras with motion detection and smartphone alerts. He probably thought I was another husband, protecting his home. In a way, I was, just not from what he'd expect. As he rang up the cameras, the printer behind the counter spit out the receipt, each click of that machine sounding like the steady tick of a clock counting down to truth. Back home, I moved with purpose. No emotion. No hesitation. Behind the bookshelf, one camera. Angle perfect. Field wide. Another in the hallway, just enough to catch movement to and from the bedroom. One hidden in the corner of the guest room insurance, in case she chose subtlety over boldness. And one last device. Behind the picture frame on our dresser, facing the bed, every screw tightened, was a heartbeat of control returning. Every lens aimed was a reminder. I was no longer guessing. When everything was synced to my phone, I tested the feed. 4 windows. 4 silent truths waiting to be revealed. Max watched me from the doorway. Tail still. Eyes sharp. He didn't need to understand technology to sense what I was doing. He just knew something had shifted. I'd gone from being a husband to an investigator. Later that week, I took a longer lunch break and drove downtown. The law offices of Harper & Bell sat on the 10th floor, polished floors, quiet hallways. The faint smell of money and fear. I met with Richard Harper, a man known in the county for ending marriages like a surgeon, ends disease cleanly, and without hesitation. He listened quietly as I explained the situation, suspected infidelity, evidence being collected, cameras in place. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair and said, "If you get visual proof clear and time-stamped, she walks away with nothing." I asked him to clarify, even though I already knew what he meant. He smiled, not kindly. "Your prenup includes an infidelity clause. Adultery voids all marital claims. No house. No savings. No alimony. It's as if the marriage never existed." I nodded slowly. "How long once I have proof?" 60 days. Maybe less if she doesn't fight it. But trust me, most don't. Not when the evidence is undeniable. When I walked out of that office, I didn't feel triumphant. I felt steady, centered. Like I'd just built the framework for the final act of a story that had gone on too long. Over the next week, I acted like nothing had changed. I smiled when she spoke. I listened when she lied. I said I love you when she needed to hear it. But every time her phone buzzed with a secret message, Every time she said book club or Jim or Claire, I'd open my own phone not to text, not to scroll, but to check the quiet screens of my hidden cameras. 4 views, 4 truths. Each one waiting for motion. Each one waiting to expose the illusion I'd been living in. I didn't have rage anymore. I had patience. And patience, when sharpened by betrayal, becomes a weapon far deadlier than anger. So I waited, and I watched, and I let the trap close itself. It was a Wednesday afternoon. Ordinary, quiet, predictable, until my phone buzzed on my desk. Motion detected. Living room camera. My stomach didn't drop. My pulse didn't spike. I'd been waiting for that notification. I opened the feed. The timestamp read 2:14 p.m. Laura was supposed to be at her book club across town. Instead, I watched the front door open. And a man I'd never seen before walked in like he belonged there. Tall, athletic, maybe early 30s. Confident, in a way that comes from believing no one will ever catch you. He looked around the house, my house with easy familiarity. Then he smiled. A second later, Laura appeared, and I'll never forget that smile she gave him. It wasn't polite or rehearsed. It was alive, full of heat and hunger, and something I hadn't seen in her eyes in years. She wrapped her arms around him, kissed him deeply, without hesitation. Not the half-hearted kiss she gave me at the door. This one was real, the kind that tells the truth. Your words have been hiding. They poured wine, laughed softly, touched like they'd done it 100 times before. Every move was casual, natural, familiar. 2 people who didn't have to pretend. The cameras caught it all, every whisper, every glance. 4K clarity, perfect angles, absolute proof. They say seeing is believing, but when you finally see the truth, it burns through you like acid. I didn't feel rage. I didn't even feel heartbreak. I just felt something inside me go still. I closed my laptop, stood up, told my manager I had a family emergency. He asked if everything was okay. I said, it will be. Driving home. The feed was still open on my dashboard. I watched them ascend the stairs together, her hand in his, laughter spilling from her lips. The bedroom camera, activated. I should have turned it off. But he didn't. Because part of you needs to see it, needs to burn the illusion to ash before you can start again. As I pulled into the driveway, Max lifted his head in the window. He knew. Even before I opened the door. He knew. And for the first time since it all began, so did I. The front door wasn't locked. That small detail told me everything I needed to know. When someone has nothing to fear, they stop hiding. The house was quiet except for the faint hum of the air conditioner and the distant sound of laughter drifting from upstairs. Her laughter, the one I used to love. Max met me in the hallway. Ears high, body tense, waiting for my signal. He didn't bark. He didn't move. He just watched me waiting. Steady. Loyal. I walked toward the stairs with the calm of a man who's already buried his pain. Each step felt deliberate. Grounded. There was no shaking. No hesitation. No anger left to spend. When I reached the bedroom door, it was slightly open. I could hear everything. The whispers, the movement, the sounds that used to belong to me. I took one breath long, deep, final, and pushed the door open. The silence that followed was instant and absolute. Laura froze mid-motion. Her eyes widened, mouth open. Skin pale. The man, whoever he was, stumbled back, grabbing the sheets like they could shield him from what he'd done. For a moment, no one spoke. Just the sound of their panic filling the space where love used to live. Didn't raise my voice. Didn't need to. Get dressed, I said, my tone flat. Cold. Unshakable. Laura blinked, trying to find words. But none came. The man stammered something. Half apology. Half fear. But I cut him off with a single look. Max didn't move. But the weight of him was felt in the room. Silent judgment. Living proof of loyalty. Laura started crying, covering herself with trembling hands. Mark. Please, I can explain. I met her eyes. And for a split second, he saw every lie she'd ever told, every I love you, every smile, every moment she'd played the role of faithful wife. There's nothing left to explain. I said, you made your choice in my bed. Now live with it outside my walls. She sobbed harder, tried to reach for me. But I stepped back. The man, red-faced, humiliated, pulled on his pants and muttered a curse under his breath. Max growled low. Just once. Deep and primal. And that was enough. He bolted for the door. I didn't stop him. Watching him stumble down the stairs, half-dressed, desperated to escape, felt like poetic symmetry, cowardice fleeing the scene it created. Laura collapsed to her knees, voice breaking between sobs. Please, Mark, don't do this. We can fix it. It was a mistake. I shook my head slowly. A mistake is forgetting an anniversary. This, I gestured to the wreckage of what used to be our life. This was a decision. She cried harder. The mascara streaked down her face. The picture-perfect mask melting away to reveal what was underneath. Not beauty, not love, just deceit, caught in the light. I walked to the door, opened it wide, and said the last words I'd ever give her. Get out. The cold air rushed in. Sharp and clean. She hesitated, still hoping for mercy. But mercy was gone. When the door shut behind her, the sound was final, a dull, echoing thud that carried through the walls like an ending. I turned to Max. He was still there. Steady. Waiting for confirmation. Good boy, I said quietly. He wagged his tail once, then sat beside me. Silent sentry in an empty house. And for the first time in a long time, the silence didn't feel like loss. It felt like freedom. The days that followed were quieter than I expected. No shouting. No shenes. No apologies worth hearing. Just the steady rhythm of my own breathing in a house that finally felt honest. Laura didn't come back. Not really. She tried calling, texting, showing up once or twice at the gate. But I never opened the door. You can't rebuild something that was never real to begin with. Word spread quickly in our small circle. Her friends stopped calling. Her family found out not from me, but from the evidence I'd given her father when he asked what happened. A single file. Date. Time. Proof. No commentary. Her parents were devastated. Her mother couldn't look at her. Her father wouldn't speak to her. The woman who once bragged about her perfect marriage became the subject of whispers in every grocery aisle. The job she tried to hold on to didn't last. A few months of awkward stares, and she left. People don't respect what they can't trust. Meanwhile, I kept moving forward. Quietly. Methodically. Work became my sanctuary. Again, clean. Logical. Predictable. My focus returned sharper than ever. My boss noticed. Promotion came sooner than I'd expected, along with a raise that felt less like luck and more like justice. At home, the silence wasn't heavy anymore. It was peaceful. I fixed things, painted rooms, cut the grass, slept better, ate better, and through it all, Max was there steady as ever. He'd sit beside me in the evenings, head resting on my leg. The kind of presence that doesn't demand anything, it just exists. Loyal, pure, unchanged. They say a dog mirrors his owner's heart. If that's true, then mine must have healed quietly. Months later, I met someone new. Her name was Samantha, a graphic designer who smiled with her eyes and didn't fill silence with noise. She had her own life, her own goals, her own independence, and that, more than anything, drew me in. I told her the truth about my past one evening on the porch. No bitterness. No blame. Just facts. She listened, nodded once, and said, "Sometimes peace looks like walking away." I remember thinking, yeah, she gets it. We didn't rush anything. We didn't need to. Real things don't demand proof. They show up quietly and stay steady. Now, when the sun sets over the backyard and the air turns golden, I sit out there with Max stretched beside me. The world hums softly, crickets wind through trees. The low hum of life that keeps moving no matter who leaves. I look back sometimes, not with pain but with clarity. Because when trust dies, it doesn't end you. It rebuilds you, piece by piece. It teaches you who you are when the lies fall away. Some men chase a revenge. Some drown in bitterness. But I learned something better: how to build peace. One quiet day at a time. Max sighs beside me, his muzzle a little grayer now. I scratch behind his ears and smile. We survived it. Not by fighting louder, but by standing still when everything else fell apart. Men, what would you have done in Mark's place? Would you confront her? Forgive her? Or let silence do the talking? Tell me in the comments. And if this story hits something deep inside you, like, share, and subscribe for more stories that speak truth in a world full of lies.